Welcome back to the Deec Systems ABMS video tutorial series. Today's topic is overview of the post-testing data processing. Welcome to the Deec Systems Automated Breathing Metabolic Simulator video tutorial series, often called simply the ABMS. These videos familiarize current users and prospective users with the ABMS operation. These videos demonstrate some of the many features to maximize simulation accuracy and ease of use for the user. Deec Systems ABMS is the gold standard for human simulation after over 25 years of qualification testing and refinement. The Deec Systems ABMS provides the most accurate and detailed simulation of a human available today. The federal government uses the Deec Systems ABMS as a critical tool for testing breathing apparatus submitted for certification by commercial manufacturers. Now let's get started exploring an amazing system, the Deec Systems ABMS. Welcome back to the Deec Systems ABMS video tutorial series. Today's topic is overview of the post-testing data processing. Again, we're just going to start out with our main page here. And just to review, we have a calibration section, simulation section, analysis. Today we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the analysis program. This is a warning about our license. We're running an unlicensed version here. So this is the analysis section. This is the main program. We have a graph here, which, like many of the other graphs, can either be automatically scaled or manually scaled. We're going to start out automatically here. This is some data that was in memory from before. Let's just review a couple of the things. Here's timeline down here. In this particular case, 0 to 75 minutes. And on our y-axis, we have 0 to 1 as our scale. And we have some data here that's expired O2, expired CO2. You'll see we have an option of displaying up to 3 variables at one time. Here's where we actually are able to get data from disk. We'll do this in a minute. This tells us a little bit of information about the data set that we've selected. Here's really some important, powerful tools here. We can export the selected data to Excel. That is the y-axis and the x-axis selected. We can also export all the data to Excel. Now, as you can see here, we have somewhere on the order of 50 variables that are recorded all the time. And depending on how the user selected the time frame during runtime, this could be every breath. So this is a large amount of data you can see here. Now, if you want more information about what these shorthand descriptions actually are, you'll have to refer to the user manual. But there is an extremely large number of variables, and work of breathing was actually added just recently. So it's a fairly complete set of measurements that all of our users have asked for over the years. But again, this, if you select this, it'll export all the data. And this can actually take quite a bit of time if you've got a 1-hour test. So you might want to think about this before you press this button, even though you can abort it. Here's an option to add the units into the Excel spreadsheet. This is kind of handy to have a record of the units. This section in here is kind of nice because if your data is recorded breath by breath, you may want to do minute averages, and this will do that. This will actually average over an interval from a start time to an end time. And this could be handy. For most tests, most people want to review minute averages. So this is handy to get the data reduced down to a minute average, and then select a portion of the data that you want and select and export that selected to Excel. Well, let's go through the whole operation here. The first step, of course, is to get some data from Deec. We've got some sample data here. I'll just pick one of these at random. Let me clear this graph just so we can watch this data come in. Let me do this again. Okay, here's our data. As you can see here, this is automatically scaled our data from 0 to 0.1. Now these gas concentrations are in fractions. So you can tell this is actually a test from a closed circuit breathing apparatus. As the test starts here, we can see the expired CO2 levels come up as the metabolism starts. We can see the oxygen levels go up rather abruptly here as the breathing apparatus is attached to the ABMS, and you can see here the oxygen levels go up gradually to about 95% and continue throughout the test. But let's look at something more interesting like minimum CO2, which is often interesting to see if there's any breakthrough on the apparatus. This appears as though it does not. Let me turn off the oxygen. You can see here it's automatically scaling for us depending on what variables have come in. This could be very handy, or if you want to say look at this even more precisely, you can turn on manual scaling. I'll set this to 0.1. And you can see we've expanded the scale even more if you want to look at some detail in any of these parameters. So now let me, so we can watch this, let me go and actually export some data here to Excel. I'm going to bring it up here. Oops. I'm going to bring it up here so you can see it actually coming in. Okay, so we're going to export this. I'll just do the selected data because this will go quickly. There you can see the data pouring in. Now you watch here. This data is still coming, still coming. This particular data set is breath by breath, so there's a lot of data, and it will take a while for this to completely populate in Excel. Okay, looks like it finished. But you can see even just for this selection of just several parameters, we've got close to 1,400 entries. So that's how it exports. Let me actually go ahead and export the full so you can see that. Let me close this. We'll leave this open so we can watch it. Now you can see here it's going to take a while. But this gives you some idea of all the parameters that are exported. And you can see here actually some of the settings for the metabolic simulation are actually included in this data. But you can see here it's still filling. Now what we can do is if we realize we didn't want to do this, we can close this, and the exporting operation will recognize the error, I think. Oh, maybe it finished. Ah, here we go. Yeah. This recognizes the error in the exporting process, and then you just say OK. Let's go ahead and average some data. Let me turn this back on. So we turn the oxygen back on. We go back to automatic scaling, so it scaled this up for us. Let's just turn this off. Let's go do an average of this. And we're going to average the whole period. Now it doesn't look much different, but let's go ahead and export that to Excel. And you can see here the minute averages are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's a lot less data. You can see here we filled it out. We got 77 entries now. So the data is considerably summarized as opposed to the nearly 1,400 that we were exporting when it was breath by breath. So, okay. And of course, then once it's in Excel, you can do whatever you want to with it. And just to review here, we've got the headers at the top here that tell us what the parameter is, as well as the units. So that's really handy for any post-processing in Excel. Let's see what else we can do. Oh yes, here's some nice user controls. I didn't mention this. We can actually go in. These are functioned within LabVIEW. We can actually go in. If you want to look at a specific section of the data, we can actually go in and zoom in. See how I did that? I clicked in one spot and dragged to the other, and that expanded that particular part of the curve. And you can also expand it. You could pick a section, or you can expand it in the y-axis as well. One of the other graph functions is to pan. You can take and actually pan around to find any particular data of interest. So anyway, this button here to update graph, sometimes normally the graph will automatically respond to any changes in the settings, but once in a while you need to, if you're not sure if it has responded, there's this button here to update the graph. I think that's about it. This button here, change summary data, well, let's just go ahead and do this. This is another licensing issue coming up here. This is actually available also at the runtime, and what this is, it's a real handy tool for the user to set up what variables are displayed during the runtime. So you can actually, this is a little complicated, but you can actually pick out what, and again, these turquoise are the information coming back to you, and the yellow ones are where you can input. But basically you can select for each position column, you can select what parameter. So like for column 10, if I didn't want it to be mouth O2 average, I could go and select some other parameter, and then that would appear in the, not only this example here heading, but it would also appear at runtime permanently. So it's a real handy way to change your headings at runtime. Again, this doesn't change anything in the recorded data, because the recorded data records everything. This may appear to be a little bit of an outlier, but it's here for use. Again, down here, informational thing about, and this is the file that was actually read in, so it gives you the current file name, and if there's a timestamp, it'll update the timestamp. So there's a pretty good review of the post-analysis. Thank you for joining us today, and come back again for another tutorial later. Thanks for joining us.